Lost and Found Cat, written by Doug Kuntz and Amy Shrodes and illustrated by Sue Cornelison. Late one night in August 2015, a car driven by a smuggler snuck out of the city of El Mosul in the country of Iraq. The smuggler's passengers were a mother and her 4 daughters and 1 son. Their father had recently died. Sura, the mother, had paid smugglers to help her family flee the country. El Mosul had become too dangerous. A few days earlier, the family had gotten ready to leave. Since they could only bring what they could carry, they had packed just 1 bag full of food and water. They would buy clothes later. But Sura had decided they would not leave without their beloved cat, Kuntz. Sura prayed that the cat, hidden inside a small carrier, would stay quiet. If the smuggler discovered Kuntz, he would make her pay a great deal more money. 2 hours later, the car stopped and they were told to get out. Another smuggler met them and led them on foot through the forest and over mountains, stopping only to eat and sleep in the woods. Sura feared for her children. Rihab, 18, Hakim, 16, Mab, 11, Ahab, 10, and Enseb, 9. But they saw it as an adventure, often singing as they walked during the 3-day journey. Sura and her son Hakim took turns carrying Kuntz at the back of the line, so if the cat meowed, the smuggler would not hear him. Whenever they stopped to rest, Sura took Kuntz behind some trees to let him out and feed him. On the 4th day, they reached a Kurdish village where another smuggler was waiting to take them to Istanbul, Turkey, in a bus. When the smuggler drove, the family had to be on the lookout for the patrols ready to catch them. The family stayed in the city for 2 weeks, moving from one apartment to another. At least Kuntz could wander freely inside. Finally, it was time to cross the Aegean Sea to Greece. The family boarded another bus and drove to a place called Izmir on the Turkish coast. Then they walked 3 hours along the beach until they were told to put on life jackets. The Greek island of Lesbos was 6 miles across the water. Kuntz and his family were crammed aboard a flimsy rubber boat. It was meant to carry only 25 people, but there was more than 60 men, women, and children on the boat. Plus 1 secret cat. Almost as soon as the overcrowded boat launched, it began taking on water because it was too heavy. From the shore, people shouted at the passengers to throw their belongings overboard to make the boat lighter, but most refused. Sura tried to hold Kuntz's carrier above the water until a wave drenched them all. The sinking boat had to return to shore. As a crush of people got off, Kuntz's carrier door was broken. Determined to make the crossing, Sura told her kids to stay aboard. The boat launched again, this time with fewer passengers. Sura was scared because only her son Hakim could swim. But her daughters were unconcerned, enjoying the ride in the sun after weeks of hiding. The 3-hour crossing to Lesbos felt like it flew by thanks to their excitement. Volunteers in Greece waited on the shore to help hundreds of refugees arriving every day. As soon as the boat reached the beach, panicky, shivering passengers scrambled to get off. Hakim splashed ashore with Kuntz and put the carrier on dry land. Then he hurried back to help his mother off the boat. Wet and frightened, Kuntz pushed his way out of the broken door of his carrier. He quickly disappeared into the forest like a deer. While the rest of the boat passengers were loaded onto a bus to continue their journey, the family refused to leave without their cat. Several volunteers helped them look for Kuntz. They searched for hours. At last, they had to give up. A heartbroken family needed to leave, taking the next step toward their new home. In a little fishing village on Lesbos, near where Kuntz's family had arrived, there lived a colony of island cats. No one owned them, but the fishermen kept them well fed. A few days after Kuntz's family had left, volunteers noticed a white cat hanging around the local cafes. The white cat's fur was filthy and matted. He looked like he was starving. The local cats seemed to know he was a stranger. They hissed and spat and chased him away. One of the volunteers, Amy, told her friend and fellow volunteer, Ashley, about the cat she'd seen. Could this white cat be the one that the family had lost? After questioning villagers and searching the island, Amy and Ashley found the white cat and took him to a local vet. Dr. Konstantina shaved the cat's matted, filthy fur. She gave him his shots and other medicine. But the cat needed a name for now. Dr. Konstantina suggested Diaz to give him strength. Diaz is the Greek name for Zeus, the king of the ancient Greek gods. The friend took Diaz back to Amy's apartment. His shaved fur was still full of sand and bugs. Amy bathed and scrubbed him until he was clean. 5 minutes after his bath, the exhausted cat collapsed, face down, mid-meow. Diaz stayed with Amy for over a month. Often he prowled around her apartment, yowling loudly. Amy believed he was looking for his family. Amy and her friends were determined to reunite Diaz with his family. But where were they? Volunteers created flyers, and Amy's friend Michelle, back in the United States, made a Facebook page for him. People contributed money to help pay for his medical care and travel. Before long, news stories about the lost cat appeared around the world. Millions of people saw the videos, articles, and Facebook updates about Diaz. He had become famous. Amy was fairly sure that Diaz's family had left Greece. Many of the refugee families had traveled to Germany. Since Amy's time on Lesbos was ending, she made plans to take Diaz to Germany. She and Diaz flew to Berlin, where a British couple named Emma and Simone had agreed to take care of him and continue the search. If his family could not be found after a year, they would adopt him. And then, on Valentine's Day, the family saw their lost cat on the news website. The oldest daughter, Rehab, who had learned some English, contacted Amy and her friends through Facebook. Everyone had been looking in the wrong place. The family was living in Norway, not Germany. Rehab told Amy that Diaz's real name was Kuntz. The volunteers arranged a Skype visit. When the family saw the fluffy cat on the screen, they called Kuntz. His ears perked up. He started searching for his family. A photographer named Doug in Lesbos, Germany, to show the refugee story to the world, agreed to fly Kuntz from Germany to Norway. But when he got to the airport in Berlin, the supervisor behind the counter told him he could not board the plane. "That carrier is too small," she says with a sniff. By this time, a crowd had gathered around Doug and his howling white cat. Doug pleaded with her. He told her the carrier was the right size. "That carrier is too small. The cat cannot turn around," she snapped. At that moment, Kuntz made a dramatic 180 degrees turn inside his carrier. The crowd laughed, and the supervisor grudgingly agreed to allow them on the plane. In Norway, Doug rented a car and drove 2 hours to the family's new home. They were waiting eagerly for him. So was a team of camera people and reporters. Sura opened the door and blinked at the bright lights of the cameras. Then she burst into tears as Doug placed Kuntz in her arms. "My habibi," she murmured. That's Arabi for my darling. The entire family crowded around their long-lost pet. After 4 months and thousands of miles, Kuntz and his family were finally together in their new home. "We're all safe now," said Sura.